Yeah, it's not brain surgery. Yeah. And we're live. Hey, everyone. Welcome to Basement Radio Arcade Podcast. This is podcast number... Oh, shit. I forgot the podcast number. I think it's 37. Yeah, podcast 37. It's right at the bottom, too. Yeah, it sounds good. Welcome, everyone, to our live podcast. We have a special guest this evening, Christian Allen from Serellan. Christian, welcome to Basement Radio Arcade, man. Thanks for joining us tonight.
No, happy to be here. This should be fun.
Yeah, definitely. Looking forward to you talking games and having a good time. So, and we have another special guest with us tonight. We have Bella Rise from Real Game Media. Bella, welcome back to Basement Radio Arcade. Glad you could join us tonight.
Thank you very much for having me back. It's always a pleasure.
Absolutely. And we have my returning co-host. We have B Money 101, who's also co-host on the Inner Circle podcast. B Money, what's going on tonight, man?
Not much. Ready to talk about these games, man.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And without further ado, we have Al, the drunk cat. Al, what's going on, man? How are you doing tonight?
Good.
You got a little rant for us later on. We'll get to that in a little bit. Yeah, and John, Mr. Megadev, should be joining us tonight at some point. I think he's having some computer issues. Eric Jackson will not be joining us tonight. He is cleaning his yacht and getting his Maybach ready. He's got some big event in South Florida, in South Beach, to attend to. Something.
I hate it when I have to clean my yacht. It's such a pain.
Yeah.
Those first world problems.
Yes, exactly. So, all right, well, let's hope. So, I mentioned this to you guys earlier, and to those who are listening, everyone cross your fingers. I'm outside Washington, D.C. right now, and we have some pretty shitty weather. It's storming, and the lights have been flickering, so I hope I don't lose power, because if I lose power, I lose internet, and I'm screwed. So let's hope for the best here. I got my fingers crossed. So Christian, thank you again for joining us tonight, man. Real quick, for those who are not familiar with your background and some of the games you've worked on and how you got your career started in gaming, could you kind of give the folks who are listening kind of a little bit of a background into the games and how you got your start in the gaming industry?
Yeah, I can give you guys the spiel. So I started. I mean, I've been a gamer since I was 7 or 8 or walking. Started on the Apple II, but I got into game development. I started as a modder after I got into the Marines in the late 90s. I made mods for Rainbow Six Rogue Spear, which was the sequel to the original Rainbow Six. Mm-hmm. And kind of long story short there, I parlayed that into a job at Red Storm Entertainment. Started as an assistant designer. I was basically a mission scripter. And then quickly worked my way up to lead designer on Ghost Recon 2, creative director on GRAW. So worked on all the Ghost Recons, mainly on the Xbox versions, specifically not the PlayStation 2 versions. I like to reiterate that. And then moved on to Bungie, where I was design lead on Halo Reach for a couple years.
Fantastic game. Fantastic.
Thank you. And then I was at Warner Brothers. At Warner Brothers, I worked a little bit on the Mad Max game from kind of the publishing side. Worked with some of the Midway IPs during the Midway acquisition, and then focused a lot on the game that would eventually become, wasn't called this at the time, but Shadows of Mordor. And so after that, after I left Warner Brothers, I decided to start my own studio and strike out on my own. Founded a company called Serellan LLC. Ran a Kickstarter to make a hardcore tactical shooter. Made a game called Takedown Red Saber, which shipped on PC and Xbox 360. And then in the last year, we've shipped a new game called Epsilon on Steam Early Access. And then on the side, I made a little weird game on Steam called Hotel Blind, which is a story in and of itself. But yeah, so I've done AAA, independent, first party, third party, made quite a few games. So yeah.
Yeah, and that's interesting because you seem to kind of we had David Jaffe on a couple weeks ago, and it's interesting. Like if we look at his background, the kind of games he's worked on, and what he's working on now, it's kind of there's a kind of a progression. I think he started like was it Mickey Mania? I think one of the games he worked on, and then he went to like Twisted Metal, and then he went on to God of War, and now he's working on a first-person shooter. Yeah, and so you've kind of, it's almost like you've kind of you kind of stayed in that first-person shooter or that shooter genre. Those tactical shooters you mentioned, Ghost Recon. You mentioned Rainbow Six, which the Rainbow Six on the original Xbox is probably one of my favorite Xbox Live games at the time. And I don't remember which one that was. It wasn't.
That would have been Rainbow Six 3.
Was it Rainbow Six 3?
Yeah, it's called Rainbow Field on the PC and 3 on the Xbox.
Yeah, that was probably one of my favorite online shooters at the time. Yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean, we used to do clan ladder matches, and I forget what website we used to do it on, but we used to do these like tournaments, and I'd be up to like 4 or 5 in the morning playing this game, which was insane at the time. I can't do that now because I have a family, and my wife would kill me.
Yeah, that game got ruined for me because I had to test the PC version as like one of my first jobs because I did some of the weapons design for one of the PC expansion ports, Athena Sword, and we had to test the game to help out UB Montreal, and I think it was one of the first games they'd done in Unreal, and it was just broke as shit. And and I've never been a video game tester before. I'm a designer, and so I wasn't used to that. Like, hey, we got to help out Montreal and do some testing. And I was like, this game's freaking all broken. Anyway.
And there was another game on Xbox Live, another shooter, Return to Castle online shooters at the time for the original Xbox. You mentioned PlayStation 2. I never got into SOCOM.
SOCOM's so good.
Is it really? I never got into it.
I love
tactical shooters out there.
Yeah, the first 2 games were so good. So good.
Yeah, agreed.
Yes,
From there on in, not so much.
Yeah, part of the team that actually developed both Takedown and Epsilon were some of the original Zipper folks that worked on a lot of the SOCOM titles.
Oh man, that's awesome.
Oh, nice. That's awesome. Yeah, it's interesting. It's one of those franchises too. I have a couple of friends that are big, first person shooter fans or just shooter fans in general, and there seems to be a lot of I guess a demand for that franchise to come back, and I wonder if Sony will ever bring it back. Especially now with where they're with the way their online infrastructure is with voice chat and everything. So, and you mentioned Al, you got excited when you heard this. You mentioned Halo Reach. What was that? So what was that like working with Bungie?
Oh, it was awesome. I mean, everybody at Bungie is, obviously super talented. You go from a situation, and I'm not calling anybody else untalented, but when you walk into a situation where you go from like kind of the boss to like you're now like super competing, like everybody around you is like top tier 100%, and you're like, whoa, this is like a really different environment in Seattle than it is in North Carolina. It's hyper cool. I mean, it's hyper stressful, and you got to be hyper dedicated. Work-life balance is an issue, especially when you start bringing children into the mix. But everybody anybody that's been at Bungie for any length of time and is still there is hyper dedicated to quality. And the other cool thing that really impressed me about Bungie was actually the quantitative way that they develop games. So because they had, the Microsoft backend first-party support, they had so much more information at Bungie than you would at, say we did at Red Storm or Warner Brothers, where you kind of, if you want like all the data, you kind of have to build your own tools and stuff. They had all that Microsoft backend, so they could do the heat maps, and they just had data down to the minuscule. So it was just like, hey, I'm going to look at 50,000 matches and how many kills with a sniper rifle versus the rocket launcher, and I'm going to get that data and tweak that, and it's very data driven, and that's why you see, I think, even though I really wasn't a fan of Halo before I started working at Bungie, and like one of my first jobs was basically spent like 2 months playing Halo 3 so I could get up to like level 11. But that amount of hyper attention to detail is what I think is the hallmark of Bungie games. And that really impressed on me as a game designer on how important that stuff is. It's It's not just going to forums and like listening to like Bill Bob 357 tell you how he hates the pistol. It's about going out and seeing how the pistol managed in 50,000 matches over the course of a week.
Wow, that's crazy. That's crazy. That precise and data driven.
That's nuts.
Oh, it's insane. It is insane. It blew me away. I haven't seen it anywhere since. I mean, you've got, even at places like Warner Brothers, they focus, like Ubisoft focuses a lot on focus testing. Warner Brothers focuses a lot on like consumer research, where they go out and like, they have access to obviously all the movie stuff, and they can tell, who likes what and all that. But Bungie and Microsoft are just very data driven. And so it's definitely both a challenge and a reward to move through those different environments as a game developer, and then of course move into the individual or more independent development, where you don't have focus group testing, data, or research, and you're just like flying by the seat of your pants. It's definitely been a wild ride.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. And that's some great insight into to Bungie. So you mentioned you weren't a big fan of Halo when it first came out. Did you play? What was it about Halo that you didn't like?
So for me, it was really a platform thing. So I had, aside from like PlayStation 1, I had played like Diablo on PlayStation 1, and before that, Sega and Atari and SNES. But I was a pretty hardcore PC gamer when I was doing. Of course, I was doing mods. That used to be only PC gaming. I played flight sims. I played Age of Empires and Empire Earth and StarCraft. So I was a very anti-console person. And then I got hired to work. Originally, I got hired to work on Rainbow Six, and then by the time I kind of actually started it, they moved me over to Ghost Recon. And my first day, they said, "Hey, you're going to work on Ghost Recon Island Thunder for the console." And I was like, "Wait, what? Like, I have to work on a console?" And so I said, "But I like swore to never buy a console." And so they bought me a console and said, "Okay, go home and learn this." And then, of course, my first game, I went and grabbed, Red Storm had this library of games, and I went and grabbed Splinter Cell, took it home. I hadn't ever touched an Xbox controller, and I'm trying to play Splinter Cell.
Was it the original Xbox controller, like the Behemoth one, or was it
the Duke?
Yeah, and I couldn't even get the tutorial on Splinter Cell. I was like, "What the hell is going on?" And so it took me a while to kind of come over to the console side and really appreciate that, especially after the S came out and the Xbox got better, and at the time, I mean, this is early 2000, it was like, if you think you're going to work on a PC title, you're not going to be in the games industry. So I played some Halo 1 because I think Ghost Recon, Halo 1 was, correct me if I'm wrong, was not on Live, and then Halo 2 and Ghost Recon were kind of the launch titles for Live.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And so we were kind of number 2 to them, so there was a lot of... And it was funny because when Ghost Recon 2 came out, the whole drive from Ubisoft the whole time through development had been like, how are we going to beat Call of Duty? Because Call of Duty had launched with the Xbox. Call of Duty 2, I think. And then we came out, and then I think Call of Duty Red 1 came out, and we beat them. And it was like, yeah, we beat them. And then Ubisoft was like, well, how are we going to beat Halo 2? And I was like, wait, seriously? Like, that's now my new goal, is Halo 2, which is like this mammoth, So there was always animosity, and same with SOCOM and Battlefield. You get some, some competitive, I won't say animosity, I'll say competitiveness.
Yeah.
And so, and Halo can be a challenge, even though they do a really good job at that, especially if you just jump right into multiplayer. There's so many options, and the sandbox is so diverse that it can be just completely overwhelming. In addition to the 12-year-olds, it's like, oh, this is a very different experience than co-op Ghost Recon. This person is saying very mean things to me. So it go out and come around, but being able to see Halo from the background, and as a designer, understand the systemic way that it's developed and all the physics and the way everything interacts to each other. It's actually one of the most realistic game systems and game engines out there. If you think about realism in their world, There's much less fakery that goes on in Halo. Things are more real than they are in a lot of shooter games.
Oh wow, it's interesting.
Well, that comes from the fact that you're actually a character model, right?
Well, no, it's mainly due to a lot of the systems that they use. You know, like the way the Warthog is built. Like the first time I opened up the Warthog and tried to mess with it, it's so complicated that all I did was like increase the torque, and the whole thing just stopped working and wouldn't drive. It's basically
cool.
like if you went in your car and like tweaked how fast your gear transfer box moved, and it would just totally destroy everything. And it's funny because they actually built a Warthog Weta to drive the way a Warthog drives, because the Warthog actually has four-wheel turning suspension, which is why it feels so good on a controller. But they tried to hook it up on a actual steering wheel, and one of the producers of Halo went down on Halo. No, it wasn't Reach. It was ODST. Went down and drove it, and the first thing they did was like drive it into a wall because all four wheels turn and it doesn't drive like a regular car. So, but yet, no, it's that complexity. I mean, the neat thing about Halo is that you can have those moments of, someone shoots a rocket at you, you slam your gravity hammer, that gravity pulse hits that rocket spins out of control, blows into a traffic cone, that traffic cone shoots across the map, hits someone in the head and kills them. Like, you're never going to get that level of complexity in a Ghost Recon or a SOCOM or, Team Fortress or anything like that, where everything's, much more kind of fake. Even something like Counter-Strike, it's much more fake behind the scenes, whereas opposed to all the different simulations that are running in Halo.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So you mentioned competing against Call of Duty. What are your thoughts on that franchise? 'Cause we've talked about Call of Duty quite a bit here on Basement Radio Arcade Podcast, and
Tread carefully, Tristan.
well, it's funny. This question is by design because I know that Bella, you and I have kind of talked a little about Call of Duty. Yeah, I'm advanced. Call of Duty for me, Modern Warfare. The first two Modern Warfares were the best of the bunch for me.
Now, is that Modern Warfare Advanced Warfighter or Modern Future Soldier Warfighter? I get them all mixed up. I don't.
Yeah.
There's only like 5 words that can be in Ghost Recon, Battlefield, or a Call of Duty. They just interchange them each time.
Exactly. But no, for me, the first Modern Warfares were the best. And I played those on the 360. But I kind of feel like, I don't know. For me, the franchise has kind of lost its luster a little bit. I know, Bella, you disagree, but what are your thoughts on that franchise? Do you feel like it's gotten a little stale? I mean, I know it's still popular, but for me, it's just gotten a little bland. I guess it just seems like the same thing over and over and over again.
Well, so I would argue that that the Call of Duty franchise in general, and I'm talking the entire franchise when it started to current, has a very specific model that they followed through the entire franchise. And what I found is seeing. So I really enjoyed. I liked Call of Duty 1, and I liked Modern Warfare 1 in a single player environment. And I've been saying this for years. I said this, about Call of Duty 3, I think. Is their model is we're going to identify our genre, i.e., what's our setting? Is it World War II? Is it whatever? Excuse me. And then we're going to go out and find a bunch of popular culture related to that genre, and then we're going to replicate it. So whether it's C-130 gunships from Afghanistan, night vision from the Gulf War, whatever it is, we're going to pick that. And we're just going to replicate it. Whether it's going to look like Saving Private Ryan or Black Hawk Down or a Michael Bay movie. And that's what they've done consistently throughout the franchise, if you look. And what I've found talking to people, it seems like the reoccurring term or theme that I hear from people is, I liked X, but now I'm sick of it. And it kind of like the first one that they played or really got into is what they really like. And then about 3 or 4 iterations later, they're kind of like, it's fallen into a rut and it's done. Whether you started with the first one or the fourth one, or it's kind of like 3 titles after that. And it's been a very successful franchise. I mean, I do a lot of like consulting with like investors and stuff that are always asking about, they're always freaking out, like, is Call of Duty going to, be as big this year as it was last year? And it's, if you actually look at the numbers, it stayed relatively flat. I mean, people that kind of drop off, I mean, it's high, flat and high. It's not going up. But from a development standpoint, it's a winning model, right? You create these cinematic set pieces. They make wonderful, awesome looking trailers. You have one hook that you add. You should add when you post this final version, Google Serellan Call of Duty dog, because we did this great mock video about the dog that release they did, where we had a snowman. I was like, when the snowman looks at you over the little eyes. And when the snowman eventually dies in a scripted cutscene, you're gonna feel really sad. But I think whether you've got that hook, and so from a development standpoint, and a marketing standpoint, I think they've followed that model. And from a gamer standpoint, I recognize that 10 years ago. So it's something like, if I had a free copy and I wanted to jump in and play and enjoy a 3, 4, 5, 6 hour just cinematic experience that I know that at any point I could just kind of stop and let my squad, my teammates go and kill everybody or whatever, then I do that. But it's fun. I think it's going to be really dependent either how long you've played the franchise or how interested in the current setting that you are.
Yeah, I'm not interested in the current setting. Well, actually, that's not true, because the last trailer they showed with the fighting in space.
Oh man, so ridiculous.
Yeah, it kind of piqued my interest. I was like, oh. Actually, I was watching. We were doing the E3. It wasn't E3, was it? I feel like I was on with you guys, Al, on Superdeform.
Yeah, you were on with us. Yeah.
Yeah, and Doc, Forget Amnesia, who we were talking about earlier, he was like, "Oh my god, like this is so awesome," and I got a little hyped. I'm not gonna lie, it was like the first time in years that I've gotten a little hyped for Call of Duty. So
we don't see very much first-person shooter in Zero Gravity. Ghost did it in the intro, I think.
Quake did it.
Quake did it to a degree. But you always came back down, right? You never really consistently floated.
Yeah, you came back down,
This is about people who judge Call of Duty every single year before Call of Duty comes out. Always end up buying Call of Duty anyway. Save your judgment until the game comes out and you actually play it. Because it's like reading the blurb of a book and go, oh, this is going to be absolute bullshit. And it turns out you've just thrown aside War and Peace. Like wait until the game comes out.
It's a valid point, Bella.
It's like any non-Transformers Michael Bay movie. I always talk crap about it, and then I begrudgingly go and enjoy my popcorn while everything explodes, and then go home and then bitch about Michael Bay movies.
Yeah, I do the same thing, Christian. Like when the last
terrible.
When the last Transformers came out with Mark Wahlberg, I was like, no, why? But I was at the movie theater there.
When the last Transformers came out with Mark Wahlberg, I was like, yes, Mark Wahlberg. I mean, Transformers.
Why is there a woman on this podcast about video games?
Hello.
And there he is, Mr. Negative John. Welcome, man. Glad you could join us and get past your PC issues.
My computer was having some technical issues. I apologize.
So Christian, this is John. He's our resident Christopher Walken.
Nice to meet you, John.
Hi. What's up, man?
So, John,
I got nothing. Sorry, I've had a long day, so I'm kind of spacey right now.
No worries, man. We were just talking about some of the games that Christian's worked on. We're talking about some first-person shooters. We were talking about actually just talking about Call of Duty.
Why?
And yeah.
Hush.
Well, it's a great franchise. Yeah.
Generates a good return on investment, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Christian, you mentioned you do consulting work for individuals looking at games. Is this kind of like you're advising investors who are looking to invest money in video game development? Is that what that is?
Yeah.
Or?
So, well, I do a variety of consulting work because I'm an independent game developer. I don't have like exclusive contracts with like you normally have as a publisher. I can I do a variety of stuff. The majority of what I do is I talk to kind of hedge fund managers about
nice.
kind of high level game stuff. So they might say, hey, when do you think the next console generation is going to be released? Or should we put money into VR? Or and these are like big money people. Like they're, I can't say who they are, but they're big hedge funds. And
Well,
they're like,
should they put money in VR? I'm always interested in the whole VR debate.
As a lot, with that, I charge $250 an hour for that. So,
Yeah, if you'd like a consult, you can just send me an email, and Rick, I'll set something up for you.
Gotcha.
But like if I was a short-term investor right now, I'd say no. If I was a long-term investor, I'd say yes. Is basically my answer. The secret is when you're gonna pick that number. But I do a lot of that where, like a specific example was back in 2006. This company had come out with a physics card, and it was going to be like your graphics card, but for physics card. And this hedge fund were like, is our physics card is going to be the next big thing? And I was kind of like, no, unless console developers adopt them, I don't know a good percentage of PC gamers are going to go out and buy a physics card to stick in their machine. It's kind of like a product without a need, because the developers have to support the games without the physics card and with the physics card. Inherently, the physics card has to be visual only and eye candy only, and no one's going to drop $400 to have 50 pieces instead of 10 pieces when the door blows up or whatever. And I was right. So I do a lot of that kind of stuff, and then I also do some court stuff with litigation, where I got certified as a court-recognized expert in game development, and I do stuff where I go into court cases and testify about how games are made. And then I'll do specific games, too. Like I worked on the After Earth game by Will Smith's company, Overbrook Entertainment, just kind of consulting with them on how the game should be and things like that. And since the movie was such a huge success, that was a huge win.
I was about to say something, I was like, oh, wait.
Christian, let me ask you something. What out of all the games you've worked on, what's been your most memorable experience or favorite game to work on?
The favorite game for me to work on was Ghost Recon 2 Summit Strike, which was a standalone expansion pack for Ghost Recon 2. It came out in August, whatever the August was before the 360 shipped. Was that 06, 05, 06?
05.
05. Yeah.
So the cool thing about that game was I was working on Graw at the same time concurrently, and for the few months before I rolled on to Graw, there was only like two of us. It was me and Jeff McGann, who took over the lead designer role from me. Now he's a lead designer at Sucker Punch on the infamous lightning shooty game. But me and him basically just got, it was like me and him and Mike Haynes, who was the kind of lead artist, kind of just got to go into like conference rooms for like 2 weeks and just kind of bang out what this game was going to be. Because it was a expansion pack, there wasn't a lot of engineering money put into it, so it was pretty limited what we could change. Even though we ended up kind of changing the whole presentation of from Ghost Recon 2 to Summit Strike. And we just had a big art team, so we could really we already had a lot of assets. We could do kind of whatever we wanted. And nobody cared about it much because they were all focused on Graw, which at the time was a complete broken mess, and it was, fires raging all over the place. So you'd kind of like send this, hey, here's what we want to do with Summit Strike, and people are like, yeah, whatever. I got this emergency meeting about, the 5 studios across the world that are working on Advanced Warfighter. So they kind of let us do what we wanted, and so it was a very small team. It was, I think, 30, 40 people, and we had a stable platform. Obviously we stuck with the core game because it was a standalone expansion pack. It wasn't, doing a completely new title. But it was just a really fun, cool experience. A lot of, beer drinking and, chatting between a lot of different people. And there wasn't a lot of like corporate interference or anything like that. We just kind of got to make a kick-ass game. And when I did my interview with Bungie, Jason Jones, who's kind of like the creative engineering mysterious godhead.
I heard. Yeah, I was gonna say. I heard he's like the guru behind Bungie.
Yeah, he's kind of this weird. I won't say weird. He's a really normal dude, but the main thing he has to reputation is he hates press. He doesn't want to do interviews. He doesn't want to be out in the public. He kind of shows up and you'll have just great conversations with him. But he was sitting in the interview room. I remember there was at the original Bungie building. Well, it wasn't the original. The one I interviewed in 343 or 434. There was this special office that was before the entrance, and even when you interviewed, you never got to go into the main Bungie. You had to sit in this special little room,
isolated.
And he came in, and the first thing he did, he was in cargo shirts and a t-shirt. The first thing he did is takes off his shoes and puts his feet up on the table. And I was like, I think I'm gonna like this dude.
But when he walked in, was it? No,
because I didn't know. I had no idea who he was because I didn't pay attention to Bungie. I was like, here's this dude that's coming in to interview me. What do you do? And he's like, well, I'm like a lead engineer. And I'm like, okay. And of course, later I'm like, he's the guy that founded the company. But he had spent the time. He had asked me via email, like, hey, is there one game you want me to play before I interview you? And I told him Summit Strike. And he spent like 5 hours the night before playing Summit Strike. And he was like, Summit Strike is awesome. Like, I had this moment where, like, I got discovered by the enemy and the alarm started going off and then helicopters came in. And I was like, oh, yeah, like, what? Yeah, I worked on that. And he's like, oh, yeah, it was super awesome. And I was like, oh, my gosh, this is so cool. So, yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Gentlemen on the panel, do you guys have any additional questions for Christian before we transition?
Nah, go ahead and transition.
Are you sure, John?
Go ahead and do it.
Are you sure, John? You just joined us. No questions?
No questions.
Okay.
I'm sure you guys have asked everything that I would have asked.
Well, maybe not.
What, do you really want me to ask the questions that you think I'm going to ask?
Yes.
Consider that for a minute.
Yes, I do actually. It brings a lot of value to the podcast.
I've had a little bit to drink, so you probably don't want me asking anything. Let's
transition.
Move on.
Yes, let's transition. So Christian, tell us about your current studio, Serellan, and some of the current projects you guys are working on right now.
Yeah, so Serellan was founded in early 2012, and our focus since we set up the studio is working on squad-based tactical shooters. So our first game, we actually ran a Kickstarter. We raised over $200,000 to work on the game, and then we eventually signed a publishing deal with 505 Games. So that was shipped. The primary platform was PC. We also did an Xbox 360 XBLA version of that. That game had some launch problems, had some review issues, and so we ended up not renewing our partnership with 505 on that. We worked for a while on a sci-fi game for Amazon. Damn it, I was not allowed to say Amazon. I violated my non-disclosure agreement. That's okay.
Bella?
I couldn't catch that quick enough because I was the word coming out of his mouth.
The edit
We were
button is a
working
beautiful
on a
thing.
science fiction project for a large publisher that I can't mention who they were.
Yes.
That didn't end up. It was going to be for a platform that I won't say, and
good.
didn't end up panning out. And but out of that, we developed this art style for this science fiction game, specifically around the way the post-processing works and kind of this more cartoonish, not quite cel-shaded from a technical standpoint, but more of a cartoon look. And we kind of went out to our community because we still owned all the assets made for that. We kind of released the videos of it and said, hey, we're working on that. You guys want us to try to develop this ourselves? And they're like, well, we love the art style, but we want more of a modern day shooter and more in vein of, Takedown and Rainbow Six and Ghost Recon. And so we kind of took those concepts and merged them together into Epsilon. So we have this very bright, in my opinion, very beautiful game that's, the antithesis of, all the brown, dirt clod, blood on the screen shooters, combined with the more tactical, nonlinear elements of something like a Rainbow or a SWAT type game. And we've been working on that. We released it on Steam Early Access for $7.99. Right now we're working on bringing co-op. It's taken us longer than we thought. We were hoping to have that in the spring. It's now almost the end of the summer. So hopefully get that up and running. But we're a small team. We're not. We're going slow and steady rather than trying to put out a bunch of broken stuff all the time with early access. We, kind of want to let stuff cook and put it out when it's good, it's tested, and it's solid, rather than having a lot of updates that everything in early access is broken all the time. And then on the side project, like I said, I released a small project called Hotel Blind in the spring, which was kind of just an experiment to build a game from ground up in Unreal in a week. And actually, Bella contributed to it and did some voiceover work for it, so which made it much, much, much better. And you should check that out. It's only $1.99 on Steam. And you can get an achievement, in 100% achievement in 10 minutes.
Nice.
Worth it.
Nice. Yeah, so I remember, Bella, you mentioning that, I think last time you were on the podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, that you done some voiceover work or something?
Yeah, I did a little bit of work with Christian. It was an experience.
So, Bella, you were kind of like
a good one.
Well, yeah.
It was
A rousing endorsement.
Yeah.
It was very interesting.
So, Bella, perhaps there's a future for you in game development then.
Look, it's something that I've actually been working towards a little bit over the last 12 months. I've been studying a lot to do with game design and dabbling in it a little bit here and there with the last 2 or 3 studios that I've been working with. And Christian's been really receptive to a lot of the ideas that I've been putting forward, as far as, hey, if we did this with the game, and if we implemented that, and what if we changed this, and how about we add extra achievements? Yeah, that idea didn't go so well, but he's been really receptive to my design ideas, and he's been working very well with me and giving me a lot of opportunities. And it's a experience. When I said it's been an experience, I literally mean that. It has been an experience, because working with somebody with Christian's background, his knowledge, and his ability to actually mentor you is something that can't be taken for granted. He is just so open to trying to help you in any way he possibly can, trying to give you any opportunity that he can to further your knowledge and your skill base. And being able to have that opportunity to do the voice acting in Hotel Blind was something that was very surreal for me, which is kind of ironic because it was like working for Serellan. But yeah, it was a great experience, a great opportunity, and something that I will continue to build on.
Bella, we got to get you to move to the States.
Why is that? Everything's digital.
Well, that's true, but still. Then we can have you. We can have you more. We can have you on the podcast more frequently. Plus there's a lot of game developers here in the U.S.
Well, this is very true. There are some here. I think there's 3.
You say there's 3 in Australia?
Yeah,
That's where Team Bondy was, right?
Yeah, and we've got
Bondi. There was that one port studio that closed. There was EA Visceral had an office there that closed.
We've got Uppercut Games here too, which did that beautiful game recently, Submerged.
Oh yeah, that's right, Submerged. I remember that. 2K Marin was there, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're still there.
I believe so.
That's former BioShock Infinite peeps.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, they moved on to that, which is pretty cool. People don't realize that. Then they made the Handsome Collection and the pre-sequel, the Borderlands games. Those guys came right after finishing Irrational's BioShock Infinite.
And they actually worked from the Australian Institute of Technology, which is based in Canberra, which is the capital of Australia, where I live. So.
Oh, nice. Nice. Well, Bella, if you ever change your mind, you're always welcome here in the States. So, yeah.
I'm glad you added the States on the end of that, because we're not that good of friends.
Well, look, I live outside Washington, D.C., and it's home to Bethesda, so Bethesda's here, and
I do love me Bethesda.
Yeah, that's my claim to fame for living in the state of Maryland, is that Bethesda's here, and they're like 10 minutes from my house, so.
Nice.
Yeah, so Christian, you mentioned something about Epsilon and it being visually different than some of the other, brown and green and more earth tone, I guess, first person shooters.
Green.
Yeah, it was, no, I do like the kind of the visual direction you guys are taking with this game. It actually kind of reminds me a little bit of Half-Life 2 a little bit.
I've gotten that now twice.
Yeah.
I take it as a compliment, except it was someone like one of the journalists, well, I think it was at Xbox now, like Will Tuttle. He was like, yeah, it looks like Half-Life 2, as in it's a 1996 game, or 1992 game. And I was like, I think he's kidding, so I'll just smile and laugh.
No, but it's definitely like vibrant, like has a lot of pop to it, and I like that. Now you said it almost looks cel shaded, but you said it's not a cel shaded.
Yeah, it's not technically cel shaded. It's a different process. Kind of the end result is similar, but it's driven through a post processing effect called Sorbral Edge, along with a bunch of different post processing techs that our art team put together. I mean, our art team comes from, like I said, their main background, Deanne McGann and Mark Nicolino, they come from Zipper, and Deanne also did a lot of work at Gorilla. And so they developed that process, and it's kind of twofold. It's one, to make things vibrant and colorful and pop, and you'll notice it's pretty obvious that we have color schemes, per level. You've got, the blue and the orange, and in the upcoming one, it's more of a green. And then, there's gameplay reasons too. You can have enemies that really pop from the environment, because in a tactical shooter, that's always one of the challenges, is seeing bad guys before they shoot you.
Yeah, I have that challenge because I'm blind as shit, and that's
yeah. In Takedown, we had a lot of problems because we had a lot of enemies in black uniforms in realistic environments that just slaughtered you from forever. And Ghost Recon, we had the same trouble. I mean, in GR2 and GRA, what we did is we actually had a big fake light behind enemies, and if they were a certain distance away from you, it would light them up from behind to to cast this light out from them. That was actually like the size of like a giant spotlight that you'd have like shooting up into the sky, because it was so hard to see a guy in green with face paint on 150 yards away shooting at you. And so it helps with the gameplay on that side. And then the third reason is just from a development standpoint, the art team can focus on, not a lot of hyper detail in, the textures, and they can put the post-processing effects takes a lot of the work out of the texture work. So you can have a lot simpler environment that renders very quickly on a lot of PCs. You can do more work with lighting and architecture, instead of having a ton of high-res textures that's eating up all your graphics memory.
Gotcha. So how does this game differ from other tactical shooters that you've worked on, like in terms of like the gameplay mechanics and stuff? I mean, is it? I noticed when I was watching a video that you can actually kind of pre-plan your attack. Yeah.
I think that's one of the differences. Is it, to me, looking back on some of the other games. It's kind of taking elements from a lot of the different tac shooters. The on-the-fly mission planning and door stacking of something like SWAT, the pre-mission planning of something like Rainbow Six. A lot of the non-linearity that we built in Takedown, and then also looking at something like Splinter Cell for tactical like tools, like looking under doors and monitoring security cameras and figuring out enemies' routes and using non-lethal weapons.
By the way, I love Splinter Cell, big fan.
Yeah, some of that stealth action stuff. My buddy Clint Hawking worked on that. But anyway, so kind of taking all those elements, and the difference is specifically from Epsilon and even Takedown or Ghost Recon. On Ghost Recon, we had very specific, hey, we need to participate, starting with Ghost Recon 2, in the third-person market. Hey, it has to be, this big outside deal. It has to, focus on this. On Takedown, it was like focusing on the hardcore and the realism. Like, we're not going to tell you where anybody is or give you any tips or hints or, identify teammates or anything like that. It's just going to be pure realism, and you're going to get murdered, and that's how we're going to go. And on Epsilon, it's been more about taking all those different elements and say, how can we give tools to the player they can feel like a badass and know that they're a badass because they gather the information. It's not that we're just throwing stupid, dumb enemies in front of them. It's about they're learning, they're figuring out where the bad guys are, they're getting the drop, they're taking the shot. So that's kind of the difference in direction.
And one thing, so the premise of the game, I guess, the story, the backdrop of the game has something to do with, I guess, events that are going on in Eastern Europe and sex trafficking and stuff like that. And so with regards to the story, I mean, these are things. Were these ideas drawn from like real life events that are happening or have happened in the past?
No, yeah, definitely yes. When I was working on the story for the game, first off, Ukraine was going on.
Yeah.
Hopefully, as of this week, I was going to say Ukraine happened, but it seems to be maybe happening again, or more. But yeah, I was kind of inspired by that. I was really interested in. I've gotten really interested over the past few years about narratives and propaganda and how different events happen and how things get shifted and the narratives that get told from different souls, whether it's Ukraine, whether it's the Bundy Ranch occupation, whether it's various different protests that happen, how things get kind of moved and shifted, and that kind of inspired me to think about what's actually happening, who's actually driving it. At the same time, I'd happened to meeting with this doctor for my son had some sleep issues and some various different issues, and she's a child psychologist and was helping us as parents. And she at some point had mentioned where she had to take 2 weeks off because she was going to this symposium in Europe about specifically sex trafficking. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And I did some research, and the next time I met with her, I was like, yeah, I read that 300,000 people go into this a year. That's crazy. And she was like, not 300,000. Think 3 million current in it. It's insane. And I was like, there's nobody knows about this. You don't hear about it. You don't know about it, specifically in regards from Eastern Europe to Western Europe and into the U.S. And
crazy,
we'd had some stuff in Alaska, where I'm originally from, where there was kind of a ring where the local strip clubs had some Russian women had been brought over, and it was kind of they didn't have passports, they couldn't leave, and they'd move them every 2 weeks to different clubs and things like that.
Oh my gosh.
And just the amount of that stuff happening, I was like, well, this is a relevant, big thing that is one, from a game designer standpoint, it's a perfect bad guys, right? You're not going to go God, I murdered all those sex traffickers. I really feel bad.
It's kind of how I have that same feeling when I'm playing Castle. I'm playing Wolfenstein: The New Order right now, and I have that. Yeah, I have that same feeling when I'm killing Nazis. So
all we need to do is find a way to mod your favorite first-person shooter on PC to where every enemy is Jared Fogle. If we can figure that out,
yes,
that's the next logical step, in my opinion.
Yes. Yeah. I was going to make a joke, but I won't. It's not appropriate.
It has something to do with Subway and Jared.
It has something to do with $5, but
he's getting his.
If Christian says I was going to make a joke, but it was inappropriate, Christian was going to make a joke that was inappropriate.
He's enjoying his footlong as we speak.
Oh boy! All right.
If he's not going to do it, I will.
But yes, it was. Part of the idea was, I wanted to make, and I've tried to do this in the past. There's some elements that I tried to introduce into Ghost Recon about, kind of wars and propaganda. There's a story that I wrote for what turned into Future Soldier that got dropped when it merged with another Ghost Recon project. Later got picked up on Ghost Recon Predator, although I don't think I got credit for it on the PSP. And I had written a whole story about the U.S. getting goaded into invading Sri Lanka for false reasons, and it was kind of based on the Iraq War and some of the propaganda that goes on. And then on Halo Reach, there was some elements that we'd toyed with early on with the Rebellion, because if you know anything about the Halo backstory, when the Covenant invaded, there was actually the universe was much more like Firefly than it was like what you think of as Halo. It's this big oppressive fascist government, and then these rebels on these outlying planets, wanting to be independent. And so the original backstory of Halo, it's touched on kind of where the team is like, oh, we're going to go out and there's these insurrectionists, and like, oh no, it's the Covenant. Because most of that stuff got cut because it was just like, no, you can't shoot people. No. So there was kind of trying to implement those kind of elements in big franchises is very challenging, unless you go full on. What was the game in the desert where the guy's like Apocalypse Now murdering everybody? You have to be kind of really subtle, and so being able to take those elements, take a really international cast, like not an American rah-rah USA kind of cast and setting, it's just been refreshing and something nice. And we haven't fully explored it yet. We're still working on it and hope to do more, working with different artists and writers to try to drive that forward.
Yeah. Now, is Epsilon, is that a real tactical team?
No.
Or is that based on a real tactical team?
No, it's not.
No, okay.
Interpol, which is trademarked, and you can't use their name or their words. So the unit the group that you work with is Unipol, which is not Interpol or Europol. It's Unipol. The idea is that they're much like a global police situation, but Interpol and Europol generally just like support organizations. They don't have tactical units. But so Epsilon, the name Epsilon, the team is pushing out if they did have these tactical units. I mean, they might not have them, but we all know the CIA, DEA, GSG-9, OSS, whoever. MI6, they have tactical units that go to other countries. The Israelis, whoever.
I've worked with the Israelis; they're pretty badass.
Yeah, the Israelis are very badass. But so those tactical teams exist, but it's not modeled after a specific unit.
Gotcha. Okay. And this game, are you guys? From what I understand, this game's going to have or be accompanied with a graphic novel.
Yeah, that's the idea. So the cinematics, the first test cinematic was done by Craig Gilmore, who's a very talented and unfortunately extremely busy artist that I worked with for a while. He was a storyboard artist on and a concept artist on Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter, and now he's working on things like Walking Dead and The 100 and I don't know. I have to check his Facebook feed. He's working on seems like a different thing every week. But he did the original kind of comic style cinematics, so we thought that the look of the game worked well with a comic book style cinematic, and so the cinematics leading up to the mission are actually comic book, and they're animated and they roll through. And then the idea is that because we're actually making a comic book that is our cinematics, then we can take that comic book and turn it into a graphic novel that we can release alongside the game.
Nice. Yeah, actually, some of the visual art of the game kind of reminds me of a graphic novel too.
Yeah, that's the idea.
It's a beautiful game, and it looks stunning. And I mean, Christian knows. He's actually had people say to him previously, "This game is too beautiful to be an indie game."
Yeah. We had an indie investment group that gives grants to indie games, and we pitched it to them, and they said, "Yeah, it looks too AAA." Like, oh.
What a shitty problem to have.
Yeah, right?
Listen up, man. Your game looks too AAA. I need you to...
But can I still have some money? I could turn off the lighting, maybe, or something.
Yeah, we need to be more pixelated.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, it looks great. I mean, it really does. And on this podcast, we're big fans of indie developers because, and we've all said this on this podcast many times, the indie developers are really pushing kind of that creative envelope this console generation. Some of my best.
That's what I'm saying, dude. Like, No Man's Sky gets all this. No Man's Sky is getting criticized, rightly so, for a lot of things. But talk about pushing the envelope and trying something new.
Yeah, hell yeah, that's gone next level.
I feel like that game and Sean Murray and Hello Games are getting absolutely no credit for that at all. And it just
They've really
frustrates me.
taken it to the next level, and they've tried to create something that is an experience that we haven't had before, something that is more grandiose than we've experienced in our other gaming games. You can't go and get what they're giving us anywhere else right now.
Yeah,
You can get elements of it from various other things.
Well, and that's
like
the thing, Bella.
Dangerous, maybe it's kind of close, but it is its own thing, and it is massive. And what they have done, and the pavement that they have set, which is more important than the game itself, is the pavement that they've set is very, very important, and they really do need a lot of acknowledgement for what they've done, especially with a small team like what they have.
Well, and that's kind of, like last week I was really high on No Man's Sky, right? Like I was all over it. I played it for about 30 hours, and then I was just, I hit the point where I was kind of done. I was like, okay. I was like, I got what I needed from it. That was really awesome.
There's a 10-hour mark was a bitch.
Like
a sheer cliff.
It really did. No, it really, really did. And the game is getting, like I said, the game is getting rightfully criticized for a lot of things. And I don't think
it should be crucified.
But I blame Sony for that. I blame Sony for that. I don't blame.
Absolutely, they overhyped the shit out of it. It should not be
exactly. And if I'm Sean Murray. If I'm Sean Murray and Sony Interactive, if they want to, I'm not going to say no. Fucking hype my game. Hype my indie game. You can't blame Sean Murray for that.
I wouldn't blame him. No.
But, honestly, if Sony hadn't hyped it up the way they had, I think No Man's Sky, I think it would have been received much differently. I think people would have gone, holy shit, a team of 10
I think it would have been much more like Ark.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that is a game that absolutely should have been in early access.
DayZ. Yeah. I think if you look at DayZ, Ark, and No Man's Sky, I mean the bad news is, or the challenging thing for the team is, it got overhyped, and I don't know how much Sony was involved. All I've seen is Twitter posts, but it definitely got overhyped. Whereas you had something like Ark that was more of a sneaker that kind of just like, woohoo, this is cool, dinosaurs. But they're running into that. On the other hand, the giant wads of cash that they can roll around in probably make it feel a little bit better.
I'm sure. But really, to Bella's point, I mean, I think the important thing about No Man's Sky is not the game itself, because honestly, it's like Al said, it's going to vary for people, but once you hit anywhere between the 10 and 30 hour mark, I mean, your mileage will vary, but at some point people are going to be like, okay. But it's the promise that the technology holds for games moving forward. That's what I'm interested in.
Yeah.
But for me, it's less the technology, because I mean the procedurally generated technology is been proliferated in whether it's Spore or Minecraft or Starflight on 256 K discs. That procedurally generated technology is there. It's just the will and the time to build it. So it's not a technological challenge. It's a time and a content and an effort challenge. But the success of that kind of content means that more people, whether it's investors, indies, whatever, will be willing to do that. As opposed to I think Minecraft gave publishers this idea of like, well, if we make pixelated content, it will make money. It's like, no, money, not because it was pixelated, and not because it was early.
Hey man, I love like Hyper Light Drifter is one of my favorite games this year.
Oh yeah, so good. Games that are good like that.
So good.
What's the shooter? Is it Super Red Hot? The
Super Red Hot.
Super Hot. Like
Super Hot.
Super Hot. No, the time-based one where it's all just.
Fucking! I know exactly what you're talking about.
Super Time Force.
Super Time Force.
Super Time
Force is the best.
Yeah, that game is crazy.
Enter the Gungeon was also another pixelated one. That's another fantastic game.
Yeah, there's a bunch of games like that, and I think just the idea of just the stylized content and all that stuff. I think with a broad, non-linear, non-narrative driven, non-character driven, bro dude driven. Like I think that although there was controversy about the name today, I guess on Polygon, but I think all that stuff is good. It's like it's a gamer's game. It's a game that's gameplay. It's not some derivative of something else. I think that's good.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, it's I haven't played I haven't put 30 hours in No Man's Sky, John, but I've gotten to the point a couple hours in where I'm kind of like, oh, okay. But I definitely even if something fails, I have to or not. I shouldn't say fail. That's probably the wrong choice of words. But even if something isn't received by the masses, if you will, you certainly have to. I look at gaming as an art form. You have to appreciate the vision. And the attempt of what they're trying to do.
Well, you know what, Enrique? Here's where the
It's hard for that though.
to me, here's where the real magic of something like No Man's Sky kicks in. Is when I was like, I have an 8-year-old son and he loves games just like his dad because he's fucking awesome. And he loves his 3DS. He plays Kirby Planet Robobot, and he plays Super Mario Land 3D. He plays my son is already a big gamer. But and he's like, this is all great. I love video games. Yay! Daddy, can I play more? And then he sees me jump in a ship. He comes downstairs in the basement. He goes, Daddy, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm playing No Man's Sky. And he sees me jump into a starship and soar off a planet. And he's like, I need to play this. I need to play this. And so all I did was I handed him the controller and I let him go. And 2 hours later, he's staring wide-eyed at the screen, just enraptured at what he's seeing, because the very act of taking off of an alien planet in his own ship and being able to fly wherever he chooses was nothing more than like wish fulfillment for this kid. So that and as I was looking at him playing it, that's when I was like, okay, Sean Murray, I get it. Thank you.
Yeah, what's interesting is I had that same experience with Abzu, with my two sons, who were just like in love with the game and just had a great time watching me play. Actually, my 7-year-old beat the game. Oh, did we lost?
He's gonna log back in.
Yeah, he'll be back.
Feedback on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
he'll be back in a moment. I think he was his mic just tends to his Razer mic, which he loves, and we love Razer. We endorse Razer. Seems to not be along well.
Razer is good. We love Razer here on Basement Radio.
I'm more of a Yeti.
Razer.
I'm more of a Yeti man myself.
Yeah.
Oh, I have a blue Yeti. Do you have a blue Yeti?
That's what I'm using
So,
right now.
that's what my wife asked
It
me.
is, isn't it amazing? It is the best
Oh.
mic out. I endorse your choice of mic, John.
Hey,
But
hey guys, real quick, since he's logging back in, I think it's a good time for a beer break.
I'm actually drinking some Bowman Brothers single barrel bourbon whiskey at the moment, so I'm good.
My man, right there.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what. And by the way, Bowman Brothers is amazing. It's a local distillery, and if anybody wants some, I will happily go get you a bottle and send it to you.
You know what, John? Actually, I think they're a Virginia distillery, right?
Yep.
Yep. You know what? I've actually tried their whiskey before.
It's excellent shit.
Yeah, you're right. It is. It's
I have one
smooth.
of their
Smooth.
barrels, upstairs. I'm going to use it as a table.
Oh man.
But I wanted to touch on something real quick that Enrique said about Abzu. I feel like I played Abzu and I loved it, but I feel like I would have loved it much more in a pre-Journey universe.
Right? Yeah.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. Like I have conflicted feelings about Abzu. Like it was I understand, and dude, like, I mean, you can tell that the hand of Journey is all over that game. I mean, I know some of the same people actually worked on the game, but it didn't have that emotionally resonating ending, and that's that Journey had. Like Abzu just kind of ended.
Yeah.
And he was like, without spoiling it, he was like, all right, I'm done swimming.
Yeah. No, it's like he got a leg cramp. He was like, I'm done.
The ending was very succinct. Yeah.
Literally, he was like, all right, I'm tired now.
Yeah. And I was on the show with you, John, and I was telling you like how much I loved the game and how much I loved it more than Journey. I think the opening up to like the 3/4 mark, I think the entire, if it was side by side, I'd still give it to Abzu. But that last act or chapter or whatever you want to call it,
Zooming up the mountain in Journey. Oh,
it is just sort of like it can't even compare to what happens in Journey.
I maintain, and I've said it before many times, that Journey is the finest indie game I've ever played, and I've played a shitload of indie games. Journey there is more heart in 5 minutes of Journey than 5 hours of Call of Duty.
Oh,
and
that's hands down, yeah.
More character, more heart, more soul, and that's not taking anything away from Call of Duty, but
Yeah, it is. It deserves to be taken away
Yeah,
from.
well, maybe a little bit, but Journey is everything I love. I love about
Welcome
indie
back,
games.
Christian. Welcome back.
Sorry, it turns out I was trying to send a link to a friend, and I accidentally opened up 4 different versions of the YouTube stream. And they were all playing at different times in my ears, and I didn't know what the hell was
That's
happening.
what it was. Okay.
It happens. It happens. It happens to the best of us.
Continue,
But-
John. Sorry about that.
No, it's fine. Enrique, what was your itinerary tonight? I didn't get a chance to see it, and there's something that I wanted to bring up, but I also don't want to bogart the podcast. So, what were you planning on talking about?
He went to get a beer.
Oh, all right. Well, then I'm just gonna fucking talk about it.
Yeah.
You
Talk
know,
about it. Bring it up.
So I want to say something about Final Fantasy 15.
Oh.
Because there's something there's something that's bugging me about this, right? Like, let me caveat this. I'm a gaffer. Al's a gaffer. We're all on gaff, and of course we all know that gaff is hyperbole land. Yeah, like so. So I feel like there are for example, and I kind of got into it on Twitter with a few people, but maybe a little harder than I should. I had kind of a rough day, and sometimes I'll let my mood or my emotions affect my mood. But
Same.
and also my liquor affect my mood as well. I've had a few
Same.
drinks. But there have been a lot of screenshots floating around saying, "Look at how fucking terrible this game looks," and I'm like, "But this is a compressed screenshot." Right, like this, and it's not just Final Fantasy 15. This happens every time there's a big release, and a screenshot comes out, and they're like, "Oh, look at the jaggies," and I'm like, "Look at the compression." I mean, why don't you find me a direct feed screen? And it seems like people are actively rooting for Final Fantasy 15 to fail, and completely ignoring the myriad of it. Like that gaff thread for the Gamescom demo was almost universally positive, and I feel like nobody is giving that any credence, and I'm a little frustrated at the attitude of I really want this game to fail. It seems like, and nobody will. I mean, that is the attitude that is pervasive on GAF right now. Is that I want Final Fantasy 15 to fail because
That's on GAF in general. They want X game to fail. They want anything to fail. They're just for a reason, to fail, and that is ridiculous. I've heard from people who've played both that prefer World of Final Fantasy to Final Fantasy 15, but this
it's more traditional. Yeah,
I'm talking like 4 weeks ago, before the delay was even mentioned. I think I even said it on the SDGC that I heard from someone who was playing the game on the inside that says,
Oh, I was going to drop some nuggets.
No. I mean, you can quote me, but I'm not going to say anything that's incriminating. But what they said was, it's almost coincidentally, it's almost like a No Man's Sky issue. It seems like the Final Fantasy 15 team may have overpromised, and they had to cut back a lot. Whereas World of Final Fantasy, they sort of let that team do whatever the hell they wanted, and it's coming out in strides. If you don't like the art style, that's a shame for you, because that may I'm not saying it is, but that may be what people are expecting Final Fantasy 15 to be, as far as a traditional, it has a traditional time battle system, and that ATB, you're going to find that in World of Final Fantasy. You're not going to find that in Final Fantasy 15.
I know somebody personally who played the Gamescom demo, and I'm not going to say who he is, but he gave me both. He gave me the good and the bad.
Yeah.
And what he told me, he says I'll start with the bad. He said the game absolutely needs a 2-month delay. There's no question.
I heard from 2 people as well. Faison and Doug. And Marcel. 3.
He said.
Did Marcel play it?
They saw it. I don't. Marcel said he wasn't impressed, but Dog wasn't impressed, and Faison was like, definitely needs help.
Al, I want to give a big shout out to Marcel, because he was that guy. I mean, he was up. What was it, like 4 o'clock in the morning with us?
Yeah, he's on an 8-hour time difference from the U.S. East Coast, so he was up. He started the podcast at like what, 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning?
Yeah.
Yeah, you do have a tendency to go long.
Yeah.
That's what my wife says.
The other, you're such a barbarian, Enrique.
Christian's cracking up there.
That's good. That's what she said.
Yeah, exactly.
Welcome to Brap. I will point out that Super Deformed Gamescast, which goes live every Thursday night.
There it is.
It's a much more refined and streamlined affair, where we don't make crude jokes about our our Johnsons, for lack of a more.
Speaking of,
you know,
John, you go live tomorrow, yeah?
We do go live tomorrow, and
I missed your last invitation, and I will be home tomorrow, so if you'd like me to join you this week, I'm certainly available.
I might take you up on that because we have Michael Huber on tomorrow from Easy Allies.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so shoot me your contact info on a DM, and I'll. We should have an open slot.
Indeed.
slot. I don't see why we wouldn't.
Yeah, you guys definitely got to get Bella on. Yeah.
But I've been trying to, but she keeps ignoring us.
It's not that I ignored you. I was going to be on extended leave, and then I got a new job within the space of 3 days, and I thought I was going to have 3 months off. So
it's a joke.
She's busy making games right now.
But
hey, it is Gamescom right now. Awesome. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Let me finish what this guy was telling me real quick.
Yeah.
He the good, the bad, and the ugly. He said the bad, it absolutely needs to delay. He said the frame rate's choppy. There's a lot of clipping. He's screen tearing. He said to him the worst was the clipping. He was like, fucking Noctis's arm is going through walls, and Prompto's feet are like up to his ankles, and he's like, he was like, yeah, and so it very much needs more time. He said the good was he loved the battle system. He was a big fan of the battle system. He said it was a natural evolution of the series that it sorely needed. He actually compared it to the jump from Resident Evil 6 to Resident Evil 7.
Nice.
In the sense that, no, not in the sense that once it first. What he says is that it's a reinvention of the series, and it needed a shakeup.
Did it though?
I think it did. Now, personally,
a 10-year shakeup.
Personally, Final Fantasy 13. I mean, say what you will about Final Fantasy 13, but I thought it had the best battle system in the entire series, and I've played every.
And I think many people agree with you on that.
After the first 40 hours, when you actually get to play the real game?
Shut up, Al.
That's all I'm gonna say about that.
Al brings up a good point. I'll just leave it at that.
It cuts
Final Fantasy 13 was trash, but continue.
No, I'm not going to continue.
Well, see, that's the beauty of the gaming community, right? Is that we all love different things, and that's why having so many different games and so many different battle systems and so much diversity is a beautiful thing. Because if we all like the same thing, we'd all be bored as hell.
Well, the other thing he told me, and this is the ugly part, he said that this will be a very divisive, however you want to pronounce it, Final Fantasy game. He said because people were walking away from the demo, some loved it, like some were in love, and some were like, oh my god, just iron these issues out, and we're in. And some people were like, this isn't fucking Final Fantasy, this is Kingdom Hearts. This isn't fucking Final Fantasy.
A lot of people are upset that they basically neutered the battle system, press circle to win. And if you don't like that, you're shit out of luck. That's it.
What he told me is that you can't just hold down X and get through a battle. He was like you have to, you can. There's actually a wait function. Like it's not active time battle, but there is a wait function, and you can assign Ignis or Prompto or Gladiolus. These fucking Final Fantasy names, I'm telling you.
They're so ridiculous.
Sound like Romans.
No idea what you guys are talking about.
but no, he was like it's much more involved than people.
Final Fantasy, Christian, just sit back and enjoy the ride.
He was like in his honest opinion, he said, I think most people are salty or just down on the game because it doesn't feel anything like a traditional Final Fantasy. He said, and honestly, he was like, I get it. It's going to divide the fan base. Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. It will as well, particularly for people who are basing their opinion off of the demo. The demo is one of those things where you had to stick it through. You couldn't just play a little bit of it and go, hey, this isn't what I was expecting. You really needed to play it through and get a real feel for what they were trying to do with the backstory and bringing in the new battle system. And as far as I'm concerned, I think that it has massive potential. And I'm actually excited to see how it plays out in the full game because, as I've said many, many times before, and will continue to say until I stop gaming, which is probably the day I die, don't judge a game until you actually play it.
I think it's going to be fine, to be honest with you. I think it's going to be fine.
Wait, Bella, you mean you actually can't judge a game without playing it?
That's bullshit.
No, I think you can form your own opinions. I think you can form your opinions on what you think it will be, but by having an opinion of, I do not like this game or I will not play it based off of CGI trailers or articles from obscure gaming websites who have actually had hands-on experience with it, and basing your opinion on what the game will be for you is redundant. Every gamer is different. Every gamer is going to experience a game in their own way, and they're going to like different things about it, and they're going to hate different things about it. You can't really go into a game based on other people's preconceived conceptions of what it's going to be. You as a gamer need to experience it yourself and decide whether it's an experience that you enjoy or not.
I know a few fanboys who would hate you.
Yeah, I know a lot of
people that
I know a lot of because you know what, Bella, because you're making too much sense.
Common sense.
You're using exactly.
From my point of view, whether you're a fanboy or not, and I think that's one of the interesting things, looping it back around to No Man's Sky, is that I can look at No Man's Sky and I can appreciate what they're doing as a developer and as a gamer, and I can appreciate what they're doing. But I have a desire to play it, but I'm not going to play it because I know that I can look at it and say, this is a game about collection and about exploration. I don't have the time to do it. I'm going to be too frustrated. I can't even get out of a Fallout 4 settlement because I spend all my time putting...
Preston is knocking down your door telling you...
Yeah, I'm like, I just want to go do something, but first I have to min-max my sidearm. So it's like, I recognize, it's like I can appreciate the art and the game without going out and complaining about it and not saying, like, I don't want to play this because... Well, I can say I don't want to play this because of this, but it's just not something I have the time or bandwidth to play. Yes, I mean, Starflight was one of the most influential games I've ever played, and if you don't know what Starflight is, go look it up. I mean, it's hours and hours and hours of exploration back in 1992, but it's just not something as a gamer in my current game space that I can just sit down and do. So I think that's one of the challenges that gamers have, and it's the same in every franchise, right? Whether we're talking about Batman versus Superman or Deadpool or whatever, you've got they ruined it, no, they commercialized it, no, it's not what we want, no, they changed it, and it's hard as a fan. It's hard as a fan to sit down and watch Terminator Genesis.
God, don't even get me started.
By the way, Christian, I do remember Starflight. It was an EA game.
It was
on the PC. Yeah, I do remember that.
Freaking epic.
And before we move too much further on from that, I think Christian just hit on a really important point. So games like Fallout 4 and Witcher 3, which are two really prime examples at the moment because they're
Witcher 3 best game this console generation.
Careful, don't trigger John.
No, I'm not going to talk crap about either of them. I think Fallout 4 is amazing. I've spent over 400 hours in Fallout 4 so far, and I've somehow managed to avoid getting to finish the story because I love the game so much. But the important point that I think that we're getting onto there, so is for me, knowing that those are kinds of games that I can get utterly and literally immersed and obsessed with. Mm-hmm. I've gone through 400 hours of Fallout 4. I know I probably still have 100 to 200 hours of Fallout 4 left because I haven't even touched the Far Harbor DLC yet. I have Witcher 3 sitting there waiting for me on my PlayStation 4. I'm scared to touch it.
So good.
I know what will happen. And so I think that this is another reason why indie games have become so important to us as gamers these days, because we don't necessarily have 400 to 600 hours that we can be investing into these games. While yes, they're amazing and they're fun and they're immersive and they're amazing value for money, when you can have a game that is maybe a 5-hour experience and it gives you an emotional connection to characters and can invoke all these different emotions, and you have an amazing experience coming out of it. You maybe only pay $9.99 and you actually get to finish it within a week. When we're all quite time poor these days, we work hard, we have families, all that kind of stuff. I think that is where the indie game scene has become so important to the gaming community as a whole, because we need to have that diversity where we can get these amazing experiences from these shorter games. And then for those of us who actually do have that 400 to 600 hours that they can sink into a game, well, there's games like Fallout 4 and there's games like Witcher 3.
Yeah, Bella, that's a great point.
Bella make us all sound dumb.
I know, Bella. You make everyone. No, I mean to kind of piggyback on what you just said. I mean, we were talking about Abzu earlier, and the appeal to games like Abzu and Inside,
Abzu?
Abzu?
Abzu.
I'm sorry, Abzu. Yes, I'm sorry. Abzu, yeah.
Abzu.
Just for the record, Billy, you
Hey,
realize that
John, you know what, man? Hey, it's
Wait. What are you gonna say?
nothing. I'll save it for after the podcast.
I'm just gonna say, what I'm gonna say is, Billy, you realize
Abzu.
all intents and purposes, Witcher 3 is an indie game.
It is an indie game.
Yeah, right?
It really is. But there's a difference between an indie game that you can get a 5 to 10 hour experience out of to an indie game that is going to potentially give you 500 plus hours.
Well then, No Man's Sky can give you potentially infinite.
Oh.
Agreed. I'm not disputing that whatsoever. I said the indie game industry as a whole, not specific indie games.
Okay. Christian Allen, what did you say?
Hold on, I just thought I hear someone say Witcher 3 was an independent game.
It is. It is basically an independent game. Okay. Explain it to me. Explain it to me.
Hold on. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
I mean, CD Projekt Red may be...
Publisher,
yeah, okay, I'll let Christian
Atari.
go into this.
It's Atari and CD Projekt Red. So no, Atari is something published by Atari is not an independent game.
Yeah, but I mean,
Independent game to me is don't have millions of dollars. Does not generate 700.
Well, where did they get those millions of dollars from? They generated that money from Witcher 2. And you're just going to ignore that?
Hold on. Don't make me say something.
Okay, that's fine, because I can wait.
No.
Boom.
I think basically what both sides here are trying to say is that, yes, whilst CD Projekt Red did start off the Witcher franchise as an independent company prior to having that injection of funds that came in from Atari, which is now consistent and getting bigger and bigger and bigger, they do technically hold a stance in the community as being a indie development studio to a degree because of that. But when it comes to looking at them as a independent studio in regards to the indie game scene, when we're talking about smaller games like perhaps Serellan and Hotel Blind and games like that, there is a significant difference between the two. They may swim in the same pool, but some of them wade in the lighter end and some of them swim out in the deeper end.
Yeah, so just for background, I mean CD Projekt originally started as a localization studio, localizing Baldur's Gate. So I guess my point was, that's like, to me, that's like saying that like id's an independent game studio. Yes, they were an indie game studio, but I wouldn't call, Doom 3 even an indie game. But that's also a contentious thing in the games industry, is like, what is indie? I mean, like I said, like I was talking about Epsilon, people said I'm not indie because I ship AAA games. Even though, my projects are self-funded, it's like, am I indie? Is Notch indie? Is, not that I have Notch money, or else I'd just be eating M&Ms and drinking vodka out of my M&M and vodka bar. But
M&M and vodka bar. That's the oddest combination I've ever heard in my life.
Have you not seen his M&M and vodka bar? It's epic.
That's not two things like man, I'm gonna start a bar and we're gonna serve two things.
Oh no, this is in his house. This is in his house. He's got a bar.
I thought you meant an actual bar that serves nothing but vodka and M&Ms. That's either pure madness or genius.
Yeah. With M&Ms in different colors and then different kinds of vodka, and then you can mix and match. I guess you just want blue M&Ms and Grey Goose, whatever you want to do.
You know what? Fuck podcasting. I am opening a vodka M&M bar, and I'm gonna get on this now.
I just trademarked that.
No, I was trying to piggyback on what Bella was saying though, with games like Abzu and Inside. That for me, I don't have the time that I used to be able to play these big, open world games or game competitively like I used to online. And these games kind of fill that void, and they're nice. They're great experiences that you can put in. We talk about Firewatch a lot in this podcast too. That's another great indie game.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, it's like
Suck it, Brandon. Firewatch is awesome.
Yeah, Brandon. Firewatch is awesome. Brandon
doesn't like anything. so it's okay.
Yeah, Brandon does. Not B Money Brandon, but Brandon on Super Deformed Gamecast, which goes live 9 p.m.
Every
Eastern Standard Time Thursday. Yeah.
Shit, look at that, man. You beat me to it.
Yeah. So no, but I mean that's a great point, Bella, because we need those kinds of games. And I mean, I remember at the end of Inside just being like, "What the fuck," and putting my controller down, and be like, "What just happened?" But it was such a great gaming experience.
I can't.
That's right, and that's what we need, right? More diversity, more choices, more ability to customize our gaming experience for the time not only that we have available, for the experience that we want to be able to get out of it. And we can't necessarily always get these out of these big AAA games, particularly if we are the kind of people who are playing at hours of the night where we need to be having more of a single-player experience. If we were talking about multiplayer experiences, and games like Call of Duty, Titanfall, I bring that up so we can lead into Al's rant. There are games like that where you can jump on and have your 10 and 15-minute battles for half an hour or whatever it might be and jump back off again. But if you want something that is more tailored to the single-person experience, that you want to just get home from work at night, the kids are in bed, the wife's gone to sleep, whatever it might be, and you want to be able to just pull yourself out of your universe into the gaming sphere, which we all love so much because that's why we're here talking about it, right? Then these shorter, smaller experiences that only indie games can produce in such a small quantity are so important to what we need as a gaming community.
Totally agree.
I also think they're important too because they take risk.
Here's my problem with tonight's podcast, and this is the biggest issue I have, is that Bella will go on this really eloquent, intelligent tangent about the spirituality of video games and how much we love them and how you shouldn't judge and it's amazing, and then the rest of us go, oh, video games. Video games are good, and it just bothers me. Bella, I take it back. You are not allowed on my podcast tomorrow night because I don't want you making me look dumb in front of my computer. So
I just want to say that was a great Hulk Hogan impersonation, John.
Listen up, brother. Listen up. When I get on the top rope and I signal for the 6.2 teraflops, what are you gonna do? I still maintain that teraflop sounds like a wrestling move. Yeah,
real quick before we get to Al's rant into Gamescom. Speaking of teraflops, Christian, what are your opinions on console iteration with Scorpio and now September 7th, PlayStation? Sony's going to be announcing Neo.
No, this won't be.
Or revealing Neo, I should say.
Actually, before you get into that, Christian, can I add to that? When you add your opinion on that, can you also add to that what it means for you as a developer who is having to look at developing for an Xbox One, an Xbox S, an Xbox Scorpio, etc.?
I totally told Bella to ask that via
From a consumer, from a games industry person, it makes perfect sense, right? I mean, you've seen this before with Slims and S's and different versions and stuff like that. It's a way to get people to purchase more consoles because people want the latest and greatest. And so you do an iteration that's still fully backwards compatible. You upgrade some hardware. You make it a little bit smaller. You make the cooling system better, and you release it. It's a pretty standard thing. In the industry, nobody was surprised about any of those announcements, except for possibly the Microsoft announcement of 2 different versions, and then effectively saying that you shouldn't buy the higher end one.
Thank you.
Didn't have 4D, 4 whatever 4 is.
4K.
Yeah. Al and I have been banging that drum for a month.
Yeah, they effectively said that. It was like Pachter, or not Pachter, Major Nelson, or one of the guys was basically yeah, you shouldn't buy it. And it's why are you making a product that you're telling me that we shouldn't buy? It's pretty standard. It's no surprise, kind of mid, it kind of, to me, shows we're about halfway through this generation. Again, I predicted this generation would be all digital. So maybe I was ahead of the time. I still predict the next generation.
It's moving that way.
And you know what's funny? You know what's funny about the Christian is that you predicted all digital, and Nintendo was like, "Bro, we're totally going cartridges."
Yeah.
It's another
Don't
conversation.
ever say that on Twitter, because then just like 100 people will be like, if you take away my disc, I'll never buy video games ever again. It's like, dude, what do you actually own that's not... Because when you put the disc in, it's just activating the digital content. But, so... It's not a big impact. To me, it's just not a surprise. It's not really a big deal. It is frustrating because in the past generations, most of the console iterations have been on, getting smaller, getting lighter, getting cooler looking, being quieter. They're not fundamental changes in hardware. And I think I said it on Twitter one time. It was like, the nice thing about developing on console is the hardware is going to stay it's like you're going to have to do multiple versions. You're going to have to support that. You're going to have to support either you're going to have only support the lower res version, and then people are going to rip your ass apart on the higher res version, or you have to go into the game and say, which console am I on? I mean, I'm dealing with it right now on PC. I've got the Vive that I'm trying to port a game to, and now I got an Oculus on the way, and so I got to support console or I got to support Steam controller, the Xbox controller, the Vive, the Oculus, the keyboard, the mouse, and it's just overwhelming. And I think that introduces a little bit of that not stability from the PC world into the console world, which of course the AAA guys can absorb. But for a smaller developer, it's like if I'm porting something to Xbox One right now, I'm gonna target it at the existing Xbox One because that's what is proliferated in the market. So if I then get a review from some reviewer that's got the S or the Scorpio or which is ever the bad one or badass one, and they're running on 4K, then they're going to say it looks like crap on 4K.
Hey guys, real quick, Christian, I hate to interrupt, but I do have Enrique. It's I've got to get going, man. So I got to be up in the morning. But I wanted to say, Christian, real quick, I want to say it was a real honor talking to you, man. And I'm sorry, guys, that I was in late. My computer was
no worries, man.
I truly meant to be here at 9, so I apologize about that. Bella, I will. I think we can probably get you on the show tomorrow night, if you're available.
Certainly.
So that'd be great. Real quick plug. Superform Gamescast live every Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Tomorrow night we will have Michael Huber from Easy Allies on for the second time. He's a friend of the podcast, and he's going to be back. We're going to be doing another giveaway next week. I'm not going to say what for, but it's going to be really cool, so everybody should tune in.
PlayStation Neo.
Final Fantasy 15.
Funded by this podcast.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But also, it may or may not be Deus Ex. Just saying. So keep that in mind. Enrique, sorry for having to leave early, man.
Oh, no worries, man.
But also, Al, are you gonna be with us tomorrow night?
I'm gonna try.
Okay, cool. I hope you're there. But if you're not, I'm sure Bella will fill in for you affectionately. Okay, awesome. Like I said, it was great to hang out with you, Christian. And
nice to meet you, man.
Yeah, seriously, dude. Seriously, and anytime you ever want to come on our podcast, we're kind of like the I guess you could say the sister podcast or brother podcast or what have you of Basement Radio.
Definitely.
Remind me to hit me up.
Yeah, hit Bella up or hit me up on Twitter at Serellan.
Awesome, I'll do it. Excellent. All right, guys, have a good night.
All right, John. Thanks,
Bye.
man. See you, man. All right.
Alrighty.
So where were we now? I forgot what we're talking about.
We were basically at the point where Christian was stating that some people might get a port of the game that is on one particular console running at 4K, and the game isn't sort of designed for that particular thing, and then they're going to give it a bad review and back over to Christian.
Yeah, so I mean that's just the challenge from a development standpoint is that once you start getting these different versions in, it's not. It can be exponential. It can be a big problem for a small developer if you're looking at something like doing something on XBLA, where they're running resolutions that you're not handling. I mean, it can even be an issue in AAA. I mean, if you remember the Halo Reach 1080 Pi or 1020i or whatever controversy because the game was running at 720 and was up-resed or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's can always be an issue, and that was more of like a hardware TV problem where it was they were trying to support the most amount of TVs as possible, and so the 1080p people were pissed. So anytime you introduce those kinds of elements into it, it's kind of a pain in the ass. And I still don't. I mean, I have the same view of 4K that I do of 3D TV. It's like this is just TV manufacturers trying to sell us more expensive TVs. Do I need a 4K TV? Can my eyes process 90% of that? I mean, just even in high-res TV these days, I tend to turn some options off because it looks too much like a reality TV show.
We call it the Spanish soap opera effect.
Yeah, exactly. Too high res. Too high res.
So how do you mitigate that as an indie game dev, though? How do you mitigate all these different variables that you have in play through different console versions, different PC platforms, you know, your Mac, your Windows 10? How do you mitigate all these different things and decide for you what is the best option for your game to maximize its capacity at? How do you come to that conclusion?
Well, what you just have to do is just prioritize. You know, you just have to prioritize based on market penetration. You know, you say like, I really want to make an awesome Mac game. Okay, great, go make an awesome Mac game. I want to really make an awesome Vita game. Good luck with that. You know, so you hit both. You got your market, and then you've got your ease of launch or the cost or the stress of development, whether you're going to go to, you know, we launched on PC first this time because I was like, our last game we tried to do co-development between Xbox and PC, and it was kind of a disaster. If we had just done one at a time, we would have had a much smoother development process than trying to satisfy both groups of Xbox. And the original plan was to do all three platforms, which a new team that had never worked together before and an independent studio was just insane on an independent budget to try to do cross-platform development. And so now it's just like, okay, when I get to a certain feature point on PC, then I can work on either the Xbox or the PlayStation port. Then I can think about Mac. Then I can think about Linux, you know, all the stuff that people want. And I think the people forget that that's how it works. You know, it's not that, you know, developers sit around and be like, you know what, who do I like better? I think Xbox gamers are cooler, so let's just do that. 'Cause screw PlayStation gamers. We think they're lame ass losers. No, it's always it's not like whether you're going to be on Netflix or Hulu. It's you know if it costs twice as much to be on both, how about we get on Netflix first and then we'll do a Hulu port once we get all the bugs worked out. And yeah, maybe the Netflix people are happy that they get it earlier, but guess what? They get to play all the bugs that are going to be fixed on the Hulu version. So it's always a challenge. It's always a communication issue. You know, fortunately and unfortunately, these days you can't just work in a vacuum where you just sit in an office and make games. You have to be out there and be transparent and talk to people. And it's hard and it takes a lot of time. Yeah. And, you know, you can piss people off by doing very minor things. You know, I pissed off the, oh gosh.
What no, you didn't. You're not even going to say it. It's fine.
Yeah.
You can piss anyone off.
No more NDAs.
When it comes to as an indie developer, then, like putting it in the shoes that you're in now, as opposed to the previous experiences that you've had as a AAA developer, where you used to have the resources available to you, where it didn't matter what kind of TVs or console or peripherals you were dealing with, you had the team to deal with it. Now, in your position where you don't have those resources available to you, do you feel like you're kind of fighting a losing battle when it comes to everybody's expectations?
Well, yeah. Definitely, yes. And it can be extremely impactful. I mean, one of the things we ran into on Takedown is that we were planning to do a cross-launch between PC and Xbox in September, and the Xbox 360 version got denied certification by Microsoft for two reasons. The two reasons we got denied certification was, one, if you started the console with the game in with your Guitar Hero controller plugged in, then the Guitar Hero controller ran the game, not your main.
Oh, Jesus.
The second reason was that if you went out and started searching for a multiplayer match, found a multiplayer match, started joining the multiplayer match, and before you actually joined, if you unplugged the network cable out of the back of the console, the message that you got was not friendly, i.e. it said error or something like that. It didn't say you have lost internet connection. It just said cannot join match or something like that. So when an indie game like Takedown is applied to the same standards like that as a console, as a AAA game, and then you get knocked out of the rotation, so we couldn't release, and we didn't end up being able to release until February. The one had already come out by then, and then the market dropped out of the XBLA market on Xbox 360 because who was buying XBLA games on 360 February after Xbox One came out? So then you're not generating revenue and you're totally screwed. So those things can have a huge impact. And like right now at this point, if I was actively working on a console point, which I had considered early in the year, but neither of the console manufacturers stepped up and really wanted to support us, or any, let me say any, not neither. They talked about it, but didn't really act on it. So I have to wait. I'm not going to do any console development. I'm going to focus on PC development because I know it's going to be the same in 6 months. I need to wait until those consoles get out and everything kind of settles and we see where things are in the, whenever they come out, because it would be too risky.
Do you think that places you in a better position, though, if you end up having to just focus on a PC game development and get that to the point where it is like, 100%, you're happy with it, all the bugs are fixed, you're out of early access, and you have a full deliverable? Do you feel like that's probably a better option for you to be able to actually do that as a small studio and then be able to say, well, hey, I have this game now that is 100% and I can actually now present it to you as a full deliverable and maybe port it over to consoles?
Yeah, definitely right now that's the right decision. But those kinds of changes, I guess, is what drives those kinds of decisions. It would be great to be able to release on multiple platforms and increase your selling capacity by 10 times. That would be awesome as an indie developer because you're opened up to this bigger market. I mean, ideally in game development, from a game developer standpoint, everybody would only play games on one thing. That would be the best.
Yeah.
It's one thing, everybody plays games on one thing, and
so everybody go buy an Xbox.
Yeah.
I'm in a PlayStation. I'm in a PC. I mean, yeah.
But isn't it supposed to be like the appeal with Microsoft's trying to do with the UWP and DirectX 12, that it's just like seamless development experience?
I think I'll let John Carmack comment on that. Go look at his Twitter feed. And Tim Sweeney. They know a lot about the APIs more than me, but that's engineering talk, right? Whether the APIs are different, you can't tell me that there's going to be, I'm going to be able to port Epsilon to HoloLens with the push of a button, right? It's a completely different experience. Whether the base operating system is different, and that's when I mentioned John Carmack and Tim Sweeney because they've talked about basically the closed system versus the open system. And fundamentally, I don't actually know what they're saying, but I just regurgitate because it makes me sound like I know what I'm talking about. The difference between open APIs and closed APIs, I actually don't know what that fundamentally means. But you're not going to port something from a Nintendo 3DS to a HoloLens or a Vive or an Oculus.
Yeah. Well, real quick before you wrap up, I know Gamescom's going on right now, and Al, you want so the Titanfall 2. There's a beta going on right now, and I think the open beta is supposed to start this weekend.
Friday for everybody. Yeah.
Friday for everyone. Yeah. So, Al, you had something you wanted to say about the Titanfall 2 beta, or?
Well, just in general, how Respawn has been handling this open beta and beta in general for this title. I mean, this is going to be it's R2. It's their second game. It's going to be huge. It's all on all consoles coming out. The actual game I'm talking about, not the beta. Well, first of all, 2 days ago they announced there won't be a PC beta. Well, that's a little odd because that's a flagship title for Origin Access, and Origin in general is the upcoming Titanfall 2, and that was just a very strange decision. There was a beta for the original on PC. So that was the first strange news, and then the news immediately following that was it'll be available on the consoles, open for everybody on Friday.
Yeah.
And then as soon as that announced, what was it, yesterday? Code started showing up on Twitter. And I'm like, are you kidding me right now? And the reason I say this...
Well, Respawn they were tweeting out, like, send us, like, pictures of, Titanfall CE edition, and we'll send you a code, yeah.
Yeah, and I'll get to that in a second. Well, let's flash back to E3 of last year. Well, not E3. I'm sorry. When did they preview? No, it was E3 of this year when they showed.
This year, yeah.
Titanfall 2 first. They finally showed it.
Yeah, the McCallum footage.
Yeah, with the long sword.
And then you can sign up for Titanfall 2 to be a Titanfall 2 insider. And I quote. I'm looking at the screen right now. Thanks for signing up as a Titanfall 2 insider. You will now receive all the latest and greatest news and all info at this email address first! Exclamation point. Now, I say that because I signed up for this like the minute they put it up on the screen, because I didn't give a shit about what they were showing me on the screen, because I love Titanfall. I love Titanfall on the PC. I love Titanfall on the Xbox One. It's probably mechanically my favorite first-person shooter that's come out this gen. And I see all these codes showing up in random people that have never played a Titanfall game. Like, I got a code, and they're like bragging about, I got a code, and I'm just thinking to myself, damn, they didn't even want to hook up the people who
actually
helped them
interested in the
make
game.
the first game to let them make this game, because let's face it, we let them make this game. Us, as far as me, Enrique, I know other people who've played hundreds of hours of Titanfall. And am I just a fanboy who's pissed off we didn't get a beta code early? To a degree, but it's also like, what is the validity of this Titanfall 2 insider program? And I called Vince out on Twitter. I haven't gotten a response from him, and I'll continue to call him out and be like, well, what's the point of this email sign up if you're just going to give out codes to YouTubers, which is understandable. I understand that, but you're just going to give out codes to random people who didn't support you to begin with, and you're just, I don't know. It makes me lose a lot of respect. The no PC beta and this Wild West of beta codes, when if the thing is open on Friday, just don't have any codes to go out until fucking Friday. Or have everyone who played your previous games automatically get in. I mean, you're basically giving the middle finger to all your fans. And that's all I really wanted to say. And subsequently, I have canceled both pre-orders for the game until they can prove to me that they need my business, or that they need me, because I definitely don't need them. That's all I got.
Well, I appreciate where you're coming from on that. I think that a much more intelligent way of going about it would have been, instead of doing necessarily just an open beta to all or handing out all of these beta codes to everybody else, is perhaps opening it to anybody who currently owns a license for Titanfall could then take part in it. Because you clearly show by the fact that you bought the license that you support the franchise, you support the game, and you support Respawn. So that then stops you as a consumer being left to feel like you're somebody who they don't care about, even though you've been supporting them the whole time, you've put money into their franchise, and then you're seeing these 14, 15-year-olds on Twitter who've never even heard about Titanfall before, all of a sudden have a beta code, and they're like, look at me, I'm in Titanfall too. And you're like, well, how is that even a thing?
And then the YouTubers isn't really an issue for me. It's just more like the regular-ass people, and the fact that...
regular-ass people?
They're just
oh my God. Who are the regular-ass people?
But we're regular-ass people that played the game.
Hold on, Al. Christian wants to chime in real quick, man. Hold on.
I'm going to piss you guys off with this. So, a couple points just about what you're talking about. And obviously, as a gamer, I've felt this in the past, this kind of thing in the past, and I'm sure if you go back into the Ubisoft forums from many years ago about things I was saying about Rainbow Six, or Microsoft forums about Age of Empires, I've probably said similar things in relation to that. But first off, I just wanted to approach the point of the statement that you made that we let them make this game. EA let them make that game. EA hired a core of Infinity Ward and gave them X number of tens of millions of dollars to make
Okay,
that.
so what you're saying right now is that the
no,
fans
no,
aren't
wait.
important at all. No, honestly, what you're saying right now is that fans aren't important at all. That's
Can I
okay.
finish?
You can
Can
say
I-
yes or no.
Can I
You can say
finish?
yes or no.
Can I finish?
Go for it.
EA paid for that game to be made. What the fans did is made that game successful by purchasing copies of that game, which then motivated EA to pay again to make the sequel. So what I would say is that the fans that bought Titanfall 1 enabled Titanfall 2, is what I was saying.
So what I said?
No, you said the fans enabled Titanfall 1.
No, I was saying that the fans who bought Titanfall 1 helped them make R2, Titanfall 2.
Well, it sounded like Al, like you said, like the fans enabled Titanfall 1. What you're saying is what you meant is that Titanfall 1,
No,
the fans
Jesus
supporting
Christ.
1.
Yeah,
No,
I think the message is just
I
a
got
little bit
what I was
convoluted,
saying.
is all.
Oh,
For
okay.
fuck's
Okay.
sakes, if you couldn't get that, then Jesus Christ, dude. This is fucking stupid, man.
Okay. So
Seriously, I'm pissed off right now. You actually thought I said that.
Well, that's what it sounded. That's
think
how I
I'm gonna-
interpreted.
Yeah, you know,
No,
I don't know.
I got what I was saying. I was saying that all the people who went out and supported and bought the $250 collector's edition that I took a picture of and sent to Titanfall blog and still haven't received the code. You know, we're the ones who actually supported the game. And
yeah. And so
Okay, yeah.
And I agree with that. So we're on the same page then. It was just language.
Mixed
So-
messaging is all.
Yeah.
Yeah, mixed messaging, Al.
Yeah. Al.
You
Just
know,
like
mixed
Microsoft.
messaging, man.
Sorry, I didn't say that.
Microsoft never has mixed messaging. Dogs, sports, EA.
You know, Christian, we get heat for saying those kinds of things about Microsoft here in this podcast.
Oh, I get heat for it all the time because
Yeah.
I am. The thing with me and Microsoft is we have a relationship going back, and I am perfectly comfortable to criticize Microsoft's messaging because I can do so in such an objective manner, and it's always proven so right every time. It's not like, everybody at Microsoft's like, oh yeah, that was a really bad messaging idea. But anyway, to your second point about the whole code thing, I mean, one of the challenges that you have is you're kind of having three distinct groups, right? You've got your developers, which, they're making the game. You've got your community management folks, which, their job is to, manage the community, but take that, feedback from the community and interact with the community. And then you've got your marketing team. And one of the challenges in AAA development and big franchises is that the goals of those groups are all different, right? So your development team just wants to make the best game that they can, get the highest Metacritic, have the most people playing it. That's all they care about, like make the best game they can. The community team wants to keep the community happy, but specifically the influencers in the community happy. And they want those influencers to go out and say good things about their game on whatever social media channels, forums, whatever. The marketing team usually, especially on a sequel, makes the assumption that that first group of fans from the last title are already going to buy the game. So they're going to reach out. They want to broaden the audience. They want to reach out to new people. So that's why you see, Mountain Dew Ghost Recon, right? It's like, yeah, Mountain Dew. It's like, dude, nobody that likes Ghost Recon is going to be like, yeah, dude, let's get some Mountain Dew. It'll be awesome. They're trying to reach out to like 15-year-olds, even if it's a mature rated
So
title.
broaden the purchase base.
Yeah, they want to broaden the purchase base. So they want to go after people that didn't buy the last title. So that's where motivations can be like well, let's give out codes to random people or give out stuff to, YouTubers that haven't played the game. And I guarantee you somewhere, some marketing guy has a spreadsheet and be like, this YouTuber didn't cover Titanfall 1, so let's get them to really cover our game. So let's push at them. Let's give them stuff. Let's hit at them, because this other YouTuber that made a million videos about Titanfall 1, we know they're going to make videos about Titanfall 2, so we need to go after this new person. So I think that's one of the challenges and I guess not challenges. I'm just trying to inform. of where some of that, as a fan, where you love something, you're like, dude, I've been here for 10 years. The developer is like, awesome, I'm glad you're being here for 10 years. The community manager is like, don't piss him off because he's been here for 10 years. And the marketing person is like, who cares? He's been here for 10 years. He's gonna buy a copy of the game anyway.
So for you, in your particular position at the moment, obviously we know that your decision-making processes have nothing to do with what EA and Respawn have just done with Titanfall. But for you, as a developer that is shipping games, do you have the opinion that, and there's no right or wrong answer to this, that it is okay to allow your fan base, like in this instance where people had bought Titanfall 1 and seemed to be disregarded because they're expected to buy the next iteration, so you're not going to acknowledge them and go into focusing on this new market? Do you think that that is the best way of going about things, or do you feel like there is a strong importance that needs to be placed on fans who have been loyal to you and who have supported you financially to be able to put you in a position where you can make the next iteration of your game?
Well, instead of saying whether I think it's which way you should go, I'll just say that on Epsilon, we gave every person that Kickstarted Takedown a free copy. Totally free, forever.
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
So you're there for the fans. So you are a fan-based developer, and that is important.
I literally wouldn't be here without the fans. I mean, the difference between, like, what I was arguing about earlier about whether fans enabled Titanfall 1, fans literally enabled my studio to exist because they gave me money ahead of time. A lot of them were not happy with Takedown, and so when it was time to release Epsilon, it was like, well, you know what? Because I was trying to come up with some kind of like, and I, to be, full disclosure, I did not give every person that bought Takedown a copy because, one, that would have been financially completely destructive. Two, I didn't have access to that data because 505 published it. Three, Steam wouldn't let me because doing giveaways based on another publisher's game is against Steam rules. A lot of reasons why, but everybody that kickstarted, I just sent them a code. It was just like, you know what? You guys get the game for free. So, yeah, I mean, I'm all about, the community and the fan base. I think part of the challenge that I maybe, sometimes my defensive feathers come up, is I know a lot of those decisions aren't made by the developers. They're not made by the head of the studio. They're not made by the lead designer. They're not made by the guy who happens to be the voice of the game on Twitter that you're telling to do whatever. They're made by a lot of people that you'll never see. You'll never know who they are. And it can be a challenge as a developer, depending on the first third-party relationship of who makes those kinds of decisions. Of who as a developer, I never had anything to do with who got copies of a game. Like, yeah, maybe if I called up marketing and personally said, like, I need to talk to the head of marketing because Southbound really needs to get a free copy of this game, send him one. That might happen, but I was not involved in any kind of giveaway stuff, except to be there and like wave and go like, I'm Christian, here's all these GeoForce cards. Awesome. Like, I didn't set any of it up or have anything to do with any of that. It's all publisher side.
Yeah. Well, on that note, Christian, I want to go ahead and wrap up the podcast because I know a lot of us have to get back.
2 hours.
I know. We're not gonna do a marathon podcast like I know you were on NLG for like 3 hours.
Yeah. Like I said, I love to talk about this stuff with gamers. So yeah, I'll tend to go until Bella starts messaging me to log off.
Yeah, no.
Which I've already done.
She already has, and
sure.
yeah, she already has, and
6 minutes ago. I thought that was like a 30-minute wrap up.
Yeah, and I have to get to bed too because got to get up early in the morning. But no worries. But Christian, thank you for coming on again and for giving us your insight too on the gaming industry and talking about Epsilon and some of the past projects you worked on. We really enjoyed having you on, and we'd love to have you back on again to shoot the shit with us and talk more about gaming. So open invitation, man. Anytime you want to come back on. We'd love to have you back on again. So,
happy to, and I'd love to do some podcasts in the future where we just talk about games in general instead of focusing on my stuff because I think to me it's really fun to talk with gamers and even just like hear how people are feeling and how perceiving games, and then just talk about kind of the realities behind the scenes and stuff. So it's fun.
No, absolutely, absolutely, and we'll have to do that. Hopefully sometime soon. And Bella, thank you again for joining us. I know you're on the other side of planet Earth, so it's always a pleasure to have you on. Yeah, and by the way, Bella, seriously, when you come on and talk games, I just shut up and listen. like I think John said, you kind of make the rest of us look a little, dumb maybe. No, I'm just kidding. But
no, not at all. We all have different ways of voicing our opinions on things, and that's what makes us all unique when it comes to coming together as gamers to discuss games.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And Al, thank you again, man, as always, for joining us.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Yeah. So, B Money, thank you again, man. Appreciate it. Hey, B Money, you want to go ahead and plug the Inner Circle podcast real quick, man?
Yeah, you can definitely check us out every other Friday at 9 p.m. At TIC_podcast on YouTube. So definitely come and check us out. Hit us on the website, TICGN.com, and you can see us pretty much anywhere. So just hit Tick Podcast and Google, you'll find us.
Awesome, man. You guys have a big interview coming up, I think, soon, right?
Yes, we do. Actually, tomorrow. I won't actually be able to make that interview, but Albert Pinello will be on the show tomorrow, I believe at 6 or 7 p.m.
Nice. Big Al.
Big Al will be on the show, so definitely come by tomorrow. Check us out.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you again, everyone, for joining tonight. Christian, again, thank you. Really appreciate it. Appreciate your time. And remember, gamers, to game on, but more importantly, have fun doing so, because that's what gaming is all about. We'll be back at our regular scheduled time at Tuesday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time next week. And hey, give us a thumbs up and give us a subscribe if you haven't done so already. And we'll catch you guys next week. See ya.
Peace.
This has been another B-Rap broadcast.
Thank you, Bella. Good night, everyone. See ya.